What's up guys, JL Ghoul here for Dark Avenger Inc. Plus, here to bring you another in-depth review. This in-depth review is going to be on Ultimate Comics Wolverine Legacies, the miniseries issue 4 of 4. The final conclusion of this miniseries, dealing with Jimmy Hudson and his quest to find out more about his parents, both Wolverine and his mother. This is also going to be kind of a little overview of the series itself and whether or not I think you should check it out. So, getting into this particular issue, well, actually, let me start off by explaining what this series is about. So, if you follow Ultimate Comics X-Men, you're familiar with Jimmy Hudson, Wolverine's son, and he has the same abilities as Wolverine. He can coat his claws in metal. He has a strong healing factor, just like his dad. But he was raised by one of Wolverine's old war buddies because Wolverine wanted his kid to have a chance to grow up and have a normal life and whatnot. And so Jimmy grew up not knowing his father. And then once Wolverine died and the whole mutant thing came about, Wolverine sent Kitty Pryde with a message telling Jimmy who he is and explaining a little bit about his powers and whatnot. And then now Jimmy is kind of trying to figure out more about his father to honor him, Whereas, his parents, his birth parents are the ones that raised him. He does still want to honor his biological father, Logan, or James Wolverine, And it turns out that there is actually a hidden message about something called Project Mothervine on the disc where Wolverine talks to Jimmy with a little hologram message. And so Jimmy and his friend Black Box get off of the ultimate version of Utopia, Reservation X, to find out more about this Project Mothervine. And it goes back and forth between Wolverine's past, like flashbacks of Wolverine, and it shows Jimmy what Jimmy's doing. And it turns out, oh guys, before I go any further, there will be spoilers about this series. So, if you don't want to be spoiled, stop the video right now. But pretty much it goes into Jimmy finding more about both his parents actually, his mother and Wolverine. And it turns out that his mother is none other than the Witch of Madrigal, Magda, which makes his half-brother, Pietro, Quicksilver. And from issue 3 on, he's been, ever since maybe, it was revealed in issue 2, it continued in issue 3, and it finishes off here in issue 4. Jimmy faces off against Pietro. Beginning of the issue, it shows Magda telling Wolverine that they have a son, and basically we have Wolverine handing off Jimmy to his old war buddy, telling him, I'm gonna be out of his life. I don't want him to know me because if he does, my enemies will come after him. Things like that. And then we flash to the present. We got Jimmy taking on Pietro. It gets pretty intense, and he's getting pretty beat up. Pietro grabs him and starts running off at full speed to start ripping the flesh off of his bone. Because it turns out that Project Mothervine is this mutant serum that is used to weaponize mutants. And Magda, to keep it from falling into the wrong hands, Magda injected it into herself. And but she didn't know she was pregnant at the time. So actually, Jimmy has a pure version of the Mother Vine serum in his bloodstream, and Quicksilver thinks that the Mother Vine serum can save the mutant race. So he's trying to get Jimmy's blood and whatnot. Here is little bit of their fight. Looks pretty intense. Then, okay, this is a major spoiler, you guys. Then their fight is interrupted by none other than their mommy. Magda's still alive, you guys. It's crazy. And she explains to Jimmy, I never wanted this to happen. I hate having my children fight. And she says to Jimmy, as he's slipping into unconsciousness, she says to Jimmy, Jimmy, your dad has done a lot of bad things in his life. But he did one good thing right. Being a parent. A better parent than I ever was. Pietro, he may be my son, but he's become a real asshole of late. He becomes more and more like his father every day. I did wrong by him. I did wrong by you. But you know what? Your dad did right. He left you with that family, gave you a good life. He may not be the best person out there, but the Wolverine I knew did bad things. But he cared enough about you to make sure you wouldn't turn into him. I see a lot of him in you, actually, but none of the bad. You actually also remind me a bit of myself. It's good to see you. And then he slips off into consciousness. It was a good little dialogue, you know? And then the end shows the flashback of Wolverine handing off Jimmy to his old military buddy. He hands him off to the Hudsons, and then pretty much it goes back to the present, and Black Box is like, don't you want to find out more about Mother Vine? I have it memorized. I can tell you more. We could find out more about your parents. And Jimmy's like, that's not necessary. He's like, my parents live in a trailer park. I know all about them. You know, and Black Box is like, but wasn't that the woman that was there? Wasn't that your mother? And he's like, no, my mother lives in a trailer park. My dad too. Maybe I'll get to see them someday. Besides, that's not important. I got what I wanted. I know who I am now. And he looks at the costume. I'm Wolverine. Yeah, and he's holding the costume in his hands. I think that's a really fitting ending. I think it's cool that throughout this series, Jimmy finally, I think deep down he knew, but throughout this series he realized, you know, it doesn't matter who are my biological parents. What really matters is the parents that raised me, the Hudsons. They are my real parents. But, you know, at the same time, he does realize, you know what? Wolverine was a good dad. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be with them. And I could have turned out a lot like him, and I definitely don't want that. And I think it shows great growth of this character. It's a solid series. Definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of Jimmy Hudson or Ultimate Wolverine. And it's a setup for something later on into the future that's going to be big in the Ultimate Universe. And I think Jimmy Hudson's character himself is going to be huge. So I definitely recommend highly that you check this out. Ultimate Comics Wolverine gets a solid 4 out of 5 for single issue number 4, and a 4 point, well, no, and also gets a solid 4 out of 5 for the series as a whole. Great series, definitely should check it out, especially if you're a fan of either Jimmy Hudson or his good old dad, Wolverine. Check it out, guys. That's it for this in-depth review. Don't forget to subscribe to Dark Avenger Inc. Plus. Leave your thoughts about this series in the comments below. And that's it from me, guys. Until next time, this is J.L. Ghul. Remember, once a comic book geek, always a comic book geek. See you guys. Peace.